Hi, I'm Trent Grable, once again from the C3 Speaker Series here at Indiana Tech, Cunningham School of Business. I am joined today by Judge Wendy Davis, and we're going to talk, as always, about what she's done in her career up to now and how she got to where she is in her current position. Wendy, welcome.
Well, thank you. As my introduction says, I am a judge here in Allen County. I am a state court judge. And if any of you have been watching the Brett Kavanaugh hearings, don't ask me any questions about my high school because it might get me in a lot of trouble and what I did in high school. But I have been on the bench now 8 years. I preside over only criminal felony matters. So is there any law, criminal justice? Okay, so as y'all know, felonies are the highest form of criminal acts that you can get either an indictment or an information against you. So I only do what you kind of consider the bad boys, right? I had a whole slew of them this morning locked up in my courtroom that I presided over preliminary hearings before trial. And I'm also on the board of Indiana Tech. So I'm proud of Indiana Tech. I'm proud to be here. I am on the board of trustees. I probably know a lot more about the school than most people know, but it's more of a big picture. So it's really fun to be with like students because I hear about you guys all the time. I hear about the hockey team, the wrestling team. We talk about all kinds of stuff in the board meetings and how our students are really pretty cool students and really achieving high things. So it's great. It's great to be here. You want me just to talk about how I got to where I am?
Yeah,
All
absolutely.
Right.
Go to that.
So, of the people that raised their hand, how many are thinking about going to law school? Okay, so quite a few of you guys. So I went, and then I'm going to ask another question. How many are from this area? From around here? Very many? Oh, raise your hands. Don't be shy. Okay. So I went to Homestead High School, if everybody knows where Homestead is. I grew up here, went to Homestead High School, and then I went to school in Chicago to do my undergraduate degree. And how I actually got to law school, I never intended on going to law school. I was a political science major, and I thought I would run for Congress one day. Like I'd be sitting in the Senate asking the judges at the hearing, right? The judges the questions at the hearing. So I had an opportunity my junior year of undergraduate to kind of do like a study abroad, but because I was a political science major, my study abroad was I worked on Capitol Hill. I worked for a senator at the time, Senator Lugar. He's now retired, but I worked for Senator Lugar for a very long time. And he's the one that encouraged me to go to law school. He said, if you want to run for Congress, I would really tell you, go to law school. So I went back my senior year and I started thinking about it. I'm like, oh, I got to get good grades now. I was a cheerleader in college and I played a lot of sports, and all of a sudden I thought I had to start working on my goals. Long story short, I ended up going to law school. I went to Valparaiso University School of Law and got my degree. When I got out, I got married, and my husband was a graduate of medical school. He's a doctor here locally, and he was in the military. So he was a military doctor for 12 years. Well, why am I telling you that? Because when I graduated from law school, we got stationed at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio, Texas. So I actually took the Texas bar coming from an Indiana law school, which was kind of daunting because if you take the bar, you usually have state law and federal law, and there's state law. So I took the Texas bar. It was a 3-day bar. I'm glad I never had to take it again.
Can you explain what the bar is for those?
Oh, the bar exam is when you go to law school, like in medical school, it's the exam that gets you licensed. So you have to have a license to practice law. You have to have a license to practice medicine. So like my husband took medical boards. I took the legal bar. And so the bar is it's a 3-day exam in Texas that I took. And you study for it for about 6 months. So it's pretty daunting. And I passed. So right away, I went into criminal law. I was a state and federal prosecutor. I prosecuted cases in San Antonio, Texas against Mexican mafia, gang members. I was later appointed to a federally funded drug and violent crime task force where I witnessed crime scenes and I tried cases that I hope I never see ever again. I have 3 children. I'm a mom too, so I have a daughter who's a junior in college in Texas. I have a son who is a freshman at West Point Military Academy up in New York. And then I have a 13-year-old still here in the city. I tell you that because I got pregnant with my first child, and I will never forget, because I had her and I came back to work as a prosecutor. The first case that was given back over to me that I had to go to the crime scene on as a prosecutor was a drug deal gone bad. It was mom. She had been decapitated, so I had her head on the floor, tons of blood in the body there, and my only witness was a 7-year-old little girl who was there, and she was crying and she was traumatized. And I had to make a decision whether or not to try this case because the 7-year-old little girl was my only witness. It was about that time when I came home and I'm like, I'm done walking in blood, guts, and gore. And so my husband he decided to leave the military. We came back to Fort Wayne. When I came back to Fort Wayne, I actually moved into private practice. So then I popped over to the federal courthouse and did federal civil litigation. I did a lot of labor and employment law, discrimination law, the Me Too movement that we're hearing now that used to be just known as sexual harassment. And I would try those cases. For instance, if you had a professor here at Indiana Tech that felt like she was getting discriminated or sexually harassed by another professor or a supervisor, you could file those kind of claims in federal court, and that's civil litigation. And I was the individual who represented Indiana Tech. Fun story, I actually did represent Indiana Tech. That's how I kind of got my way to the board, to believe it or not, because I was the lawyer that represented this university for many, many years in their labor and employment and HR division. So how did I get to a criminal bench after doing civil litigation for so long? When I was a partner at a big law firm here in Fort Wayne, a law firm by the name of Beckman Lawson, and the elected prosecutor. Who knows who the elected prosecutor is right now? She's been the elected prosecutor for a long time. Yep, Karen. So Karen Richards came to me this was now 12 years ago. That's how long she's been the prosecutor. So 12 years ago, we had lunch, and she said, Wendy, will you come and work for me part-time? And I'm a full-time partner in private practice doing civil law. But with my background, I was doing capital crimes when I left. Capital crimes are the death penalty cases when I left Texas. So she said, I have some really high-level cases here in Fort Wayne. Would you come back to the prosecutor's office and would you try those for me while I was still a full-time partner? So my path to the bench is a little bit different because I came back and I worked for Karen Richards part-time, doing a lot of the high crime here in Fort Wayne. And I was a full-time partner, and I ran to become judge of the criminal bench. So I went back to my criminal roots, and now I sit on the bench. I am an elected official. I'm in a 6-year term. When I originally ran for the first time in 2010, I ran against 2 other individuals where there was 3 of us in the race. One was the incumbent. He had been on the bench for about 30 years, and I challenged him, and I won. So it's been 8 years. I already have gone through another election. I was unopposed, which is a good sign when you're an elected official that you're doing a good job for the community, and that nobody wants to oppose you. So I ran I just had to go vote for myself, basically. But anyway, so I ran, and I'm back now for my 2nd term on the bench. The majority of what I do, believe it or not, you see a lot of violence going on in Fort Wayne. There is a ton of the violent crimes that I preside over, but what I do, the majority of what I do, are drug cases. Heroin, methamphetamine, a lot of dealers, a lot of guns and drugs. On Mondays, yesterday, I have a full day. I bifurcate out my drug addicts from my actual violent offenders, because evidence-based practices that we use in the judiciary tell us that if we put the violent offenders with the low-level offenders, low-level nonviolent drug addicts, right? What happens? Does anybody know? The violent offenders make the nonviolent offenders violent, right? So we have to bifurcate them out. So on Mondays, all day yesterday, I was on the bench dealing with felony cases, mostly opiates and heroin addicts. If you watch the news at all, you see the opiate epidemic. It's just as bad here in Fort Wayne. So I see a lot of heroin. I see a lot of kids shooting heroin. I have a lot of high schoolers right now that are locked up because I'm trying to find rehabilitative places for them to go. We struggle with beds. I don't like to, if you've seen me I'm on the news a lot of the task force. I'm not a believer in locking up drug addicts that aren't hurting my community. I'm a firm believer in giving due process to everybody, to making sure everybody has a fair trial. My job is to uphold the Constitution of the United States, give them a fair trial. But I will tell you, if you are convicted of rape or murder, child molestation, all kind of the biggies, burglary even, I don't have a lot of tolerance for that. That's kind of easy decision making for me if you are convicted. The most daunting decision making that I make is every day when I deal with drug addicted offenders, because most of the time they're not bad people. They need help, they need resources, they need really true rehabilitation. They're caught in the criminal justice system. Typically by the time they get in front of me, they don't have any family left because they've burned all their bridges. So it's interesting because a lot of people, when I talk, want to hear about all my violent offenders, which I'm happy to talk about any cases that I'm not currently presiding over. And I'm happy to answer any questions about the violent cases, but really the seriousness of our drug epidemic here in our state, statewide, is daunting. And our jail is overcrowded with drug offenders that I don't have anywhere to put them because the bed space is all full, right? We've got inpatient treatment, we've got halfway houses, we've got a lot of services available, but all those services are full. So that can be very daunting in my world, trying to decision make for these individuals and not try to keep them locked up. On a kind of a more global aspect of what I do a lot of administration work as a judge. Because I'm a state court judge, obviously I represent the state of Indiana. I'm on a lot of committees around the state. Vice President Pence had a task force that he appointed me on when he was the governor here, so I worked directly with him on the drug crisis and many other elected officials around the state. Currently, I'm on the Attorney General. Attorney General Hill has a drug task force. I'm on that. So I think a lot of times people think the judicial branch of government, we can be a little more mysterious and mystic, right? Because we wear black robes and you don't see us out and about so much anymore, or historically. Our Chief Justice is really pushing us judges to get out in the community more, do more things to encourage people to have a good view of the judiciary, to encourage people to go to law school and see that there is a career and that you can become a judge. I never thought in a million years I would be wearing a black robe that I zip up every day. It's a privilege that I have, and it's a privilege to serve my community. I take it very seriously. And on the other point of that too, I would be remiss if I didn't tell you all, because I know you're young. You know, in my job too, not only do I need to show my ethics and integrity when I have my robe on, I really have the responsibility to show my ethics and integrity when I have my robe off and how I live my life, right? That's why Judge Kavanaugh is getting all of these questions being thrown at him. So it's been a good reminder to those of us in the judiciary. Again, I don't really want to talk about my high school because I might get thrown off the bench. Not really, but I'm just saying, you know, it starts right now. I mean, one of the things that I would love to just make sure you hear me loud and clear. You think you're young and just in college and playing sports, and you know, live your life every day above reproach, because you never know where you may go. You never know what you might want to do. The whole world is open to you right now to aim high. I know that sounds really silly, but I always dreamed of being a judge. I never thought I would become one, but the opportunities that came to me allowed me to be where I am now. And a lot of those opportunities, like when I leave here, I will leave my contact information. I do have cards with me. Reach out to me. When you have people in the community or people that are coming to talk to you that you think you might be interested in their profession, reach out to them. You know, I cannot tell you, obviously now that I'm in the judiciary, I am highly connected around the state. I'm highly connected to politics, and I'm highly connected to the business community because I used to be in the business community representing employers and companies. So you just don't know who you might be able to meet, who you might be able to network with. That will be important to you to connect those connectors once you do graduate from Indiana Tech and want to either go on, get jobs, that kind of thing. I am a huge advocate. I will tell you guys, I would not be a judge. I would not zip up that black robe every morning if I didn't have people that pushed me up to the top, right? And that is a true statement. I have people along the way in my career that I would not be here if it wasn't someone pushing me to the top. And I think there's a lot of people. So because of that, I feel the responsibility to take young individuals and push them to the top and try to get them to where they want to go. So that's a big, I think sometimes as a college student, you don't really want to reach out, or you don't think you should, or you got to get to practice or whatever. Don't hesitate to reach out to those that offer it, because you just don't know who you're going to run into that may be able to help you one day. So with that, any questions so far? Yes.
So you talked a little bit about the severity of, or not severity is not the right word, but you hold people's futures in your hand. Like your decisions affecting people both on the bench and in your task force.
Right.
So just talk to us a little bit about how you make decisions with that understanding of my decisions are going to have an impact on these people's lives.
That's a great question. So in the criminal justice system, the judge kind of sits at the top, right? At the top of the system. So like this morning, anytime I did a couple sentencings this morning, so when I sentence, there is a huge ripple effect, right? A ripple effect in the Allen County Jail, a ripple effect to the Indiana Department of Corrections, a ripple effect to the probation officers, a ripple effect to the bailiffs that are in my courtroom. I mean, whatever my court orders are, they affect more individuals than not. There's a victim's family, there's the defendant's family, there's my community, there's all these people that one decision can really make a huge impact both on personal lives and in the community. I think to answer your question directly, in my role as a judge, and I know you all know this, I don't make the laws, I follow the laws. So I follow the Constitution of the United States, that we do have a Constitution of the state of Indiana. And then we've got case law, right? We have law that comes from the Supreme Court, that when cases are filed and appealed, then there's what we call common law and case law that I have to follow. So I do have a lot of discretion on sentencings. As far as due process, and everybody knows as far as going through the process of pre-trial and bond hearings and arraignments and trials, jury trials, all those kind of things. That's a process that is governed by precedent, constitutional law that's already in place. So I take an oath to follow that law and ensure everybody gets a fair trial. Once that trial is done, though, in the state of Indiana, so when I was in Texas, the jury is the one that assessed punishment, believe it or not. So as a prosecutor, it was a bifurcated system. I would go and get a guilty. Once I got a guilty, we'd do the second phase of the trial, and the jury would actually decide the punishment. Not so in Indiana. In the state of Indiana, the judge has full discretion to make decisions on the punishment of someone after they've gotten convicted. So if you go through a jury trial and you're convicted, the jury's done, and I'm totally responsible for the punishment, the punitive measures. So I have a wide range of discretion. And what do I utilize? Well, on a daily basis, for instance, I sentenced somebody this morning in a felony case. And what happens is once you're convicted, you sit in the Allen County Jail for 30 days, and my staff, probation department, police department, all these departments come together and they form a report for me. And it's called a pre-sentence investigation report. I review that report. So it takes about 30 days to put it together. So 30 days, so I get a pretty thick report on the individual, and I go through there. It's got their criminal history. It's got their family. It's got where they went to high school. I'm going to tell you honestly, most of the people in the felony division that I sentence here locally drop out of high school. Most of them don't have a degree. They tells me a lot about their peers, where they're living. So I have all of this. It's like Big Brother. I have all this information on this one offender that tells me everything about their life that got them to where they are today. And so I use all that information in the pre-sentence investigation report, and then we have a hearing. We have a sentencing hearing. People testify. Sometimes it's the victim. If it's a victim case, the victim will come forward and testify. I see a lot of victims in domestic violence when the husband or the wife, beats up a spouse really bad or hurts them or almost kills them. So a lot of times I have the victim that'll come and testify how it's affected them, a victim impact statement. Usually the defendant will testify. You have a Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. That applies in sentencing as well. But most of the time, like this morning, the defendant wants to speak to me and tell me how sorry they are or how remorseful they are, whatever they want to say. Then I take all of that information, the sworn testimony, the arguments of counsel, and and the pre-sentence investigation report, and it's discretionary on what kind of punishment that I give them. Like I said earlier, if it's somebody that has hurt somebody in my community, molested a child, killed somebody, stabbed somebody, raped somebody, you're probably going to go to the Indiana Department of Corrections in my courtroom. However, if you're somebody that's been convicted and maybe haven't really hurt anybody, but maybe you're hurting yourself. For instance, I had a high school student last week during sentencing telling me she was 18 years old. She's been sticking a needle in her arm every day for the last 3 years full of heroin. So that's not somebody to me that needs to go to the Indiana Department of Corrections. I have discretion to send her there, but of course I didn't send her there, right? I'm not gonna send her there. I'm going to release her to an inpatient treatment center under my court orders, under my jurisdiction in the criminal court, and put her into rehab. And then there's others too that walk into Kroger and they steal something for the fourth time. And they may not be mentally ill enough to find them incompetent, but they're not all there, and it's their third theft, and it's now a felony because it's their third theft. And I can look at them and I can say, "What are you doing?" And a lot of times they tell me, "I was hungry." Right? So are they hurting people in my community? Yes. But there's a lot of different levels of felonies. And so I think, to your point, I think my life experience coupled with the law, coupled with hopefully my integrity and ethics of wisdom and good, fair sentencing drive me to my decisions. Did I answer your question?
That does answer my question. Yeah.
Right.
Yep. So I was just trying to get out because those are pretty weighty, pretty heavy decisions.
They are.
And so just an insight into how you process that, what things you take into consideration, things like that.
And don't get me wrong, I think people misunderstand sometimes as judges. I'm still a human being. Like I look at me now, right? I'm a mom, I have kids, I told you my life experiences. There are times when I get off the bench and my knees buckle because of what I've heard, because of the decision I have to make. And now where I am in my career, I make the decision and I don't hesitate, and I'm pretty confident, and I usually never look back on my decisions, but they're hard. They're hard. And this is the silliest thing to say, but it's sometimes really hard to be a good professional. Every single day. It's hard to be in college. It's hard to make good grades, right? It's hard to live your life above reproach because where we are in our country now, someone's always looking to knock you down, especially if you do what I do, right? Because I'm an elected official. So, I think it's how you react to hard things in life, how you react to bad grades. It's going to define you. Does it stumble you? Does it make you worse? Does it make you give up or be disappointed? Or does it make you decide, I'm going to be better than this, right? I can overcome this bad grade or this person that's talking bad about me or whatever, So I think in any profession, I don't know all the speakers that would come and talk to you, but in any profession, if you're good at what you do, it's never easy. I mean, you can say it's easy because, because you're trained, right? I'm trained in my craft. I'm trained in my skill. I have a lot of experience. I had 21 years of practicing law before I took the bench. So I had a ton of experience. But being good at what you do means you work super hard. I mean, there's not a day that doesn't go by that I think to myself, could I have worked harder? But it's not always easy. And it's not always easy making the right decisions in my world. Probably not always easy making the right decisions in your world, right? I mean, just doing what you do every day. But to be good at what you do, sometimes you got to say it just isn't easy,
So law school is a pretty big commitment, right?
Yes.
So not only the 3 years of actual schooling, but all the preparatory work before that, and then the preparatory work afterwards past the bar, right?
Yep.
So how do you rationalize these larger decisions? And did you have a plan B, or were you determined to make that work?
It's so interesting. My personality, I never had a plan B, which I know I should have had a plan B, but I have a really strong faith too. So I do a lot of praying, and I do a lot of kind of seeking direction for my life. But I should have had a plan B because I don't know what I would have done if I didn't give me, what happened to me, I'll be honest, when I was in college, I was not a 4.0 student to get into law school. In fact, like I told you, I was a cheerleader. I was probably more social than I should have been. I didn't take my studies all that seriously until I went to Washington, D.C. and thought, oh no. So when I got into law school and I worked hard, I studied for the LSAT. That's the exam that you have to take in order to get into law school. I studied hard for the LSAT, but I went to law school, folks, I studied 24/7 in law school. It is not easy. It wasn't easy to get in. It wasn't easy to stay in. And so I did. I studied my tail off. Remember, I was dating my husband, who was in medical school, and he didn't have. I mean, he studied hard too. So we were kind of these nerds that on the weekend he was at Loyola Medical School, and we just studied together. And then, but it paid off, right? So it paid off and paid off tenfold for both of us. But law school is hard. It was hard, but it wasn't unachievable. I mean, I'm not naturally smart. I have to work. Even right now, when I get big briefs, or when I have to read the law so that I'm prepared when I take the bench, I mean, I have to sit and I have to focus and read. I shut my chamber doors and I focus. So, some people, don't you have some friends that they study, they read it and they know it like that? That's not, I am 52 years old and a judge, and I'm telling you, I don't just read it and know it like that, right? Like, I got to buckle down. I have to make sure I read it and understand it. Sometimes I have to read it twice to make sure I really understand what I'm reading. So, I mean, I think that when I was in law school, I had to work hard. Now, I did do very well in law school. I will tell you that my hard work paid off. I was the top of my class in law school, which served me well, because if you work hard in school, that gives you good places to go later on. So that did serve me well. Taking the bar exam to get my law license was very hard. I studied 6 months straight constantly for the bar. It's something I never ever want to do again. I was lucky because I'd practiced in Texas for so long, and I was in good standing in Texas, that I had reciprocity. So when I came to practice law in the state of Indiana, I didn't have to take the Indiana bar. Because remember, licensing is state to state in most of these professions. So with your law license, my law license, I have a Indiana law license and I have a Texas law license. But I was lucky because I had practiced long enough in Texas and was in good standing. I didn't have to take the Indiana bar again. So that was really nice. Mm-hmm. That was really nice.
Super. Well, now is my favorite time of our talk, where I give you some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
I'm just going to give you some questions. You say the first thing that comes to your mind.
Oh man. Okay.
This will be fun. Biggest pet peeve?
Lawyers that lie to me.
Best book you've ever read?
Oh gosh. Oh man. Well, I'd like to say Dreamland. Is anybody familiar with Dreamland? It's about addiction. Okay, I just read that. But I'd probably be lying because Girl on a Train was one of my favorites. Oh. Have you guys read the book? There's a movie out too. But for some reason, the book Girl on a Train, I really liked it. It's an older movie.
One bucket list item.
I don't really have a bucket list. I just feel like I live. You know what I mean? Bucket list item. That's tough.
That's fair.
I gotta.
live. Yeah.
Yeah, I live. I mean, I'm just not one of those people that has a bucket list, because I kind of live and I feel blessed. I feel blessed with my family and my kids and my career, and I feel like I've already met so many people and done so many things in politics with the people I've been, that I just feel blessed. So my bucket list, I guess, is continue to be blessed.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's not what we're going for, but appropriate answer. Yeah. Favorite Disney character?
Cinderella for sure.
Milkshake or smoothie?
Smoothie.
Favorite Fort Wayne restaurant?
My favorite Fort Wayne restaurant right now is Chapel's out Southwest.
Biggest spending weakness?
Biggest spending weakness? A good bottle of wine. I hate to say it, but it's true.
It's true. We like
I don't like cheap wine. Ugh.
We like honesty here.
Yeah.
Favorite holiday?
I did say Cinderella and a good bottle of wine, right?
Yeah, it goes together.
Yeah.
Favorite holiday?
Christmas.
Best piece of advice you've ever received?
No one can take your integrity, and you have to earn it and build it and live it.
The skill you need for your job that you didn't expect?
Being political with a small p. So do you know what that means? Political with a large P means I have to run in a political campaign. I'm political. Political with a small p is like getting along with your professors, getting along with your colleagues. I have to deal with every elected official, from the mayor to the police chief to our senators, to our congressmen, to our governor. I'm accountable to him. So getting along with all of these people and making sure that they think highly of me and my decision making. So political with small p. Mm-hmm. I didn't expect that.
Yeah. And one piece of advice, final piece of advice for any students listening or here with us today
Mm.
about life or anything you want?
Yeah, I never ever thought in a million years I was good enough or smart enough to be a judge. And I don't know why I felt that way, because I realize now that I am. But don't underestimate yourself. Don't ever underestimate yourself or where you can go and what you can do. And I just have to tell you, make sure your integrity is intact. My son, who goes to West Point, and he worked really hard to get in there, they have this saying: don't lie, don't cheat, and don't tolerate those that do. And if I think through that, don't lie, don't cheat, and don't tolerate those that do, that means you're a leader, because you're not going to tolerate it, but you're not going to do it yourself. So you lead by example. And so some of these are very basic things, but I think now more than ever, in the climate we are in, not just in politics, but in business and anything that you decide to do, do it well and do it with integrity. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't tolerate those that do.
Super.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for joining
Welcome.
us today.
Yeah.
We're going to sign off our speaker series number 4 of the season. See you next time.